What's going on, wrestling fans? It is I, Steve Fall, and welcome to 10 Count. On today's edition, my guest is in the airport. It's Nigel McGuinness. How are you doing today?
I am doing very well, Steve. Life's a little bit hectic. I'm about to fly out to London, but good to be busy sometimes. A little bit too busy.
Of course it's good to be busy, especially because usually when I do a phone call or a Zoom call with someone, the head is next to me. This time it's a picture of you because I guess it's a magic trick because you are going to London, not just for travel, not just for business. We're going to do some tricks. Some magic tricks on May 28th, the Electric Ballroom presented by Progress Wrestling. Now, this is exciting. For so many years, we know you as a professional wrestler, and suddenly we are keen to you being a magician. Now, how did you get into magic in the first place?
Oh, that is a long story, Steve. I started originally, I think the story goes, I started when I was wrestling in Japan, and a lot of the sponsors would take you out to eat after the shows, and oftentimes, you'd sit there for 2 or 3 hours, didn't speak a lot of the language at the time. And at the same time as well, I wanted to show a little bit of respect for the people who are good enough to take you out and pay for your food. So I took a pack of cards, learned a couple of basic tricks, and it just sort of went from there. It started doing something I did in Japan, and then a little bit when I came back to the States in the locker rooms and stuff. Once I started working with WWE, every week I was on the road, I'd take a different trick and show it to a few people, Scott Armstrong and a few other people who love to see it. And so it's just sort of gone from there, to be honest with you. But when I was working for WWE, I didn't really have the time and or the motivation per se to actually put it all together and do a show. Everyone was always saying, you should do a show, you should do a show. And I didn't really know how to do it exactly. And unfortunately, it took the passing of Jay Briscoe, who's actually an integral part of the show, not just the inspiration for me to put the show together, but actually the show itself. It begins with a video of me doing a magic trick for Jay way back in 2013, 2014. And so that inspiration, his passing kind of made me realize it happens often, doesn't it, Steve? Someone you're close to passes away and you do realize you're not guaranteed tomorrow. And this is something that if you're going to do, you may as well do it now. So when I was let go from WWE, I had a little bit more free time, as you can imagine, and put pen to paper, as you will, took out the deck of cards, took out a lot of the other tricks I've been working on, and really went on some deep dives as well, watching a lot of the people who inspired me, the Darren Browns of the world, and sort of came up with a 90-minute show that not just a magic show in and of itself, but it's an homage to professional wrestling. As I said, it was inspired by Jay Briscoe, his love of magic and his love of professional wrestling. It sort of ties it together and connects all of us, who have this, what I like to call this proud, guilty pleasure that we call professional wrestling.
That is true. Very true. It is. I'm very proud, but yet there is a guilty pleasure involved with it. But the fact that you were inspired, unfortunately, by the passing of Jay Briscoe is something I think a lot of fans would like to hear more about, because what was your relationship like with Jay? Because to the world, it seemed like, he's this wrestler, you see his character, but those stories that since his passing have come out more and more and more. What a loving person.
Yeah, very much so. Anything about Jay Briscoe behind the scenes, he was a family man. He cared deeply, not only about the family, but the business and all of his friends that he made in the business as well. We'd sort of lost touch since I left Ring of Honor, and he, like many people in the wrestling business, you don't see him for many years, but the second you see him in a locker room again, it's like no time has passed and you carry on exactly where you left off, So it was really one of those situations where if you think of Jay Briscoe, the Jay Briscoe you see in the ring, to all intents and purposes, is the same Jay Briscoe you see outside of it, just not turned up to 10, you know what I mean? He was a man who was passionate. Ultimately, he was very passionate and so full of life. And so when you see someone like that and in a blink of an eye, boom, they're gone. It just reminds you, as I said, not one of us is guaranteed tomorrow. And so it was that nature that really sort of inspired me.
Interesting you say that, because, in the world, in America, at least, is shootings. It feels like every other day. And so It is awful. And so every day, you know, I have 3 children, and every day I make sure before I leave that house and they leave the house, you know, I give them a hug, I give them a kiss, I tell them how much I love them, because unfortunately, we don't know if I go to the
Yeah.
grocery store, will someone suddenly get shot? It's a crazy world we're living in right now, but you're putting out good vibes with your magic show on May 28th, Electric Ballroom. Again, Progress Wrestling is involved with there. My first introduction to you, Nigel, was Desmond Wolf. That was my first introduction. I heard of the name Nigel McGuinness, but then suddenly Desmond Wolf showed up, and you're just beating the crap out of Kurt Angle. What was the plan for this? Why didn't Nigel McGuinness, the name, come over, and Desmond Wolf ended up becoming your face?
I would assume it was a copyright thing, because I owned the copyright to Nigel McGuinness. So I think a lot of times TNA or Impact, I can't remember which one it was at the time. I can't remember how many sides the ring had either, for that matter. But it wasn't relevant. Either way, the truth is, I think they just wanted to own the name. So they christened Desmond Wolf. I'm not sure who it came from or where it came from. I think perhaps Vince Russo. That's an urban myth. I never got Vince to back that up, but he used to own a video store, from what I understand, before he got into wrestling. And there was a cult British movie called With Nail and I. And it's a classic movie. You should go out of your way seeing it. It's about 2 aspiring actors in England at the turn of the 60s, becoming 70s, the end of 1969. And these 2 aspiring actors who are destitute and poor, and you know, they're drinking any alcohol they can get their hands on. But one of them, he says, when I make it, I'm going to be known as Desmond Wolf. And so I think perhaps maybe that was the inspiration. Yeah.
Wow. You know, there you go. Cracking open information here, because I didn't even know about that movie. And the fact that Vince Russo took that name, I wonder if that name was copywritten before. So interesting.
Good point. Yeah.
Interesting there. I know the world recently saw you sign with AEW April 5th. You signed with AEW. Now, Collision is coming. We're going into June 17th. And as we are talking right now, AEW Dynamite is airing. So, you know, maybe Tony Khan has already announced that you'll be part of the announcer team, but is that in the cards?
Well, it's always a possibility, to be honest with you. I'm not sure who's going to be on the commentary team. All I know is, like everything that Tony does, it's going to be pushed to the moon 100%. He's ready to, you know, to knock it out of the park, so to speak. As we saw with AEW All In, London and Wembley Stadium, you know, Tony doesn't go halves or anything, you know what I mean? So certainly that's going to be a fantastic show. I'd love to be a part of it, but your guess is as good as mine at this point.
Because we may bring up Wembley Stadium. Right now, we're on the road to break records at Wembley Stadium and wrestling in general for ticket sales. And now, not even one match has been announced yet for All In Wembley Stadium. This has got to be impressive, because at the end of August, we are going to see something I don't think wrestling fans thought we'd ever see again. Is a huge, huge monumental show at Wembley Stadium, because you go back to 92 with Bulldog and Bret Hart having a great encounter. But this is completely different. This is AEW, a brand that's only been around for about 5 years now, doing something completely different. Is this exciting for you?
Oh my God, it couldn't be more exciting. I was on Tony Khan's plane when he told me. I think he had me on the plane so I couldn't text anyone else at the same time, you know. I was bowled over. I couldn't believe it. Like you said, it's one of those things you never could have imagined. I've had a few of those things in my career, and certainly that was one of them. I mean, you mentioned SummerSlam 92. That was 31 years ago. A young Nigel McGuinness was in the crowd, and that was one of the moments that I sat there 50 rows back, and I just had this premonition. This is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be a professional wrestler. I remember turning to my friend, Daniel Trelfer. Isn't it funny how you can remember your friend's name from 31 years ago, and yet you can't remember someone you met in a bar last night?
Correct.
Anyway, I turned to him and said, I'm going to be a wrestler. And for some reason, he believed me. He had no reason to, given that I was, 14 years old at the time and about 130 pounds soaking wet. But that was one of those moments that I just said, this is what I'm going to do. So to go back to Wembley Stadium, it's just going to be an incredible full circle moment for me, certainly, in whatever context I'm there.
Wow, because I know the world, you're not officially retired from professional wrestling, correct?
No one's officially retired, are they? Yeah.
That's true. In professional wrestling, a retirement match, you're back a week later. But is there an option on the table? Little 14 Nigel was in the crowd for SummerSlam 92. What about grown man Nigel McGuinness back in the ring, Wembley Stadium, 90,000 fans there? Is this possible?
It's a big question, isn't it, Steve? Yeah. I mean, I'd be crazy to turn down that sort of an opportunity. But to be honest with you, I'm far more better used, I would say, in a commentary role at the moment. Don't want to injure myself, don't want to kill myself. But if there was going to be the possibility of me wrestling again, like you said, you couldn't possibly write a better ending to my in-ring career. What was it? My last match was December 2011 in West Virginia, in a small little fire department there. And so if someone could have said to you, God, 12, 13 years, you're going to be wrestling at Wembley Stadium, you just go, you're out of your mind, of course. You know what I mean? And maybe you are out of your mind. So honestly, I wouldn't like to speculate. I will tell you this. It's going to be an incredible show. They're going to be the best wrestling talent from all over the world. Forget about Forbidden Door. It's going to be an open door policy. Tony Khan is going to bring in the very best talent in the world. And certainly one day in the past, I would have considered myself that. You never know. I made a joke when I started doing the interviews for it. I said, well, you never know. If they sell out, I may have to dust the boots off. And a bit nearsighted on my part. May have backed myself into a corner. But no, all joking aside, Steve, I'm just going to be happy to be there.
Oh man, I hope you bring your magic show with you too, because I know it's coming, this weekend, May 28th, huge weekend for a lot of wrestling, but also magic as well. But yet I would love the fact that you have, 90,000 wrestling fans in London, England. Well, why can't we have a magic show the night before? Why can't this be something?
It's funny you should say that, Steve, because the idea did cross my mind, indeed. So I actually am already looking for a venue close to Wembley. I've got a couple of ideas in mind. I'm working with my agent on getting something booked up. So hoping that a couple of days before I'll have something ready to go. And I'll be able to announce it on social media sooner rather than later, because as you said, there are going to be 90,000 people there, but they've got to know about it to be able to get any of them into a venue. And as I've been finding out, this is actually the third time I put this magic show on its feet, and getting the word out in this age of social media is extremely difficult. There's so much media out there, you know what I mean? There are so many things going on. To get people to hear about it is really difficult. So that's why I appreciate your time, Steve. And I really do truly appreciate everybody that comes out and supports me and supports independent artists, because that's really the lifeblood of producing new art, is the people that pay their money to come and support it, and that's why I'm so gung-ho behind a promotion like Progress, who's certainly, not a startup. They've been around for a long, long time, but they are continuing to, be a great ground for developing talent in the UK and all across Europe. And so I'm super excited to be part of that show. 16 of the best, most aspiring, talented. We've got such a great plethora of wrestlers who are going to be on the card as well. So super excited to be doing the commentary for that and to be doing the magic show on the Sunday night. And I'm also officiating the final match on Monday as well.
Oh, wow.
Doing a training seminar Monday morning, a meet and greet. I forget when that is, Saturday afternoon. And I'll be surprised if I have time to sleep, to be honest with you, Steve.
Isn't that a good thing, though?
No. I'm finding out, actually, this past week, I've been running about 5 hours of sleep a night, so it's been really, really tough. I realize if I don't get 7 hours, I'm no good to anyone. So,
oh, no.
Yeah,
I was gonna say, I got 3 little kids. I haven't slept right in like 7 years. So,
oh, wow.
I'm in the same boat. But yet it's so exciting to hear that you have so much going on with the Magic Show and, of course, Progress Wrestling. And Progress Wrestling is piggybacking a little bit on Forbidden Door in June in Canada, because they're going to have an event earlier in the day. It's going to be Progress versus Defy Wrestling. It's going to be a great event as well. I can't wait for that. There's so much happening with Progress Wrestling, so much happening with you. But I just cannot wait to see how everyone reacts to you said your third magic show, right?
It's the third time I put it on its feet, and every time I get it up, with not magicians, with comedians, for example, right? You might see a comedian's Netflix special, but what you're seeing is the finished version. What you're not seeing is the previous 6 months or a year where they did all their smaller comedy clubs and they worked on their bits and they put it together, what worked, what didn't work. And after 6 months to a year, you get the finished piece. And so I'm in the process of doing that. Not to say that the show is in any way not worthy of people coming out to see. It's a completed show 100%. But every time I sort of fine tune it a little bit. The first time, I'll give you the rundown. The first half, it's a spoken word piece, runs about half an hour, and it's me detailing my career. If anyone's familiar with Derek Delgado, he's an absolutely incredible magician, mentalist, whatever you want to call him. He does a show that was on Hulu for a while. It was in the theaters in New York on Broadway called In and of Itself. And he talks about his life and he uses magic to emphasize certain different plot points in his story. And so the first half of the show is a version of that, telling my story in wrestling about when I started out, how I had to try and gain weight when I got hepatitis, all these different things, the matches with Kurt Angle that you mentioned before. The second half is more of an interview piece. I have a couple of wrestlers up on stage and interview them about their experiences in wrestling. So people get to see a different side of them. This Sunday, I've got Big Damo and Man Like Doris.
Oh, nice.
Two of the guys, different personalities, but I'm sure they're going to be equally entertaining when I get them on stage, do a little bit of magic for both of them as well. So it runs about 90 minutes and it's not just a magic show. I've been to see a lot of magic shows recently for inspiration. I think when people go and watch magic show, they think, okay, this is a magic show. We go, there's a guy on stage and he just does these magic tricks where, oh, wow, that's crazy. Something came out of there we didn't expect. But this is more a journey that you get taken on. Like I said, it starts with a video of Jay Briscoe. It ends with a video of Jay Briscoe. This is all about the love of professional wrestling, celebrating your life, celebrating every last moment that you have, because you're not guaranteed tomorrow. So it really takes you on a journey. If you take a look on my socials, at McGuinness Nigel on Twitter or on Instagram, you'll see some of the feedback. It's been blow away fantastic. I'm so proud, Steve. So proud of being able to put this together and go out there and tell the story and do something to honor Jay as well and to honor this business that I love so much and I've spent the majority of my adult life in.
Well, I am honored and privileged that you took time today in the airport of all places to chit chat with me about your amazing show coming up. It's not just a magic show. It sounds like it's an experience of a lifetime. So people check it out May 28th, presented by Progress Wrestling. Plus, I got my fingers crossed that I put it in the universe now. You're not retired, but you're going to perform at Wembley Stadium. This is me saying it, not you. Wembley Stadium. Nigel McGuinness versus, I'm throwing it out there right now, the current AEW champion at the time. I don't know who it will be by the time we get there, but I hope in the end of that night, it's Nigel McGuinness. So, folks,
I appreciate that, Steve. But yeah, I think everybody knows who to ask.
We'll have to talk to Tony about this. We'll get Tony Khan next time, and we'll get the ball rolling. But all in all, it has been a pleasure. I'm so happy that we got to do this. I am so happy that you took time in the airport of all places to pull this off. If we did a video, it would just be a bunch of people walking behind you going, "Who's that in the camera? Who's that in the camera?" So I'm just happy that we were able to do this, a different version, but a version nonetheless. So Nigel, thank you so much for sharing your story. And again, May 28th, Progress Wrestling is sponsoring this, folks. It's a magic show, but not just a magic show. It's an experience. So thank you so much for being here on 10 Count. I've been Steve Fall. He's Nigel McGuinness. Get on that airplane, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
See ya.